Good morning, thrifters. Welcome back. Greetings from the Great White North here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I hope you all had a nice, fun, safe 4th of July celebration yesterday if you were down in the States. Lots of fireworks, all that fun stuff. Hope you all still have your fingers and all that fun stuff. We're continuing on from yesterday's tutorial where we added paint to the gums and the eyes and added some more gloss and the teeth and everything like that. So this is kind of where we're at right now. I was going back through my videos. I noticed that the camera has a bit of a hard time focusing sometimes when the background is too busy, so I'm trying a new background today. So here's where we're at. I added gloss while everybody was away. So today we're going to go back into sculpting some more stuff. We're going to start sculpting the face. Before I do that, I wanted to touch on, I've had a few questions about the product that I use and how long it takes and kind of what it's used for and stuff like that. For me, I use this product exclusively. I use this Aves Apoxiesculpt exclusively. The reason I do, I will explain it to you in a few minutes. It's a two-part epoxy, so it comes in 2 jars, and part of it is gray and the other color, and then the other part is the color that you're going to mix. The reason that I use this exclusively is I do a lot of modifications on figurines and that sort of thing, and the ones that are ceramic, if you need to bake onto it and stuff like that, it's fine if it's ceramic. But the issue is if it's not, if it's made out of wood or it's made out of a resin, it can actually be quite toxic to try and bake those things on. If it's plastic, like these skulls, like this is a very thin, malleable plastic, if I was to try and bake a clay onto that, obviously my skull would just melt off and I would just be left with some gums and some teeth and some eyeballs. So for me, this stuff is the ideal product, even though it takes a little bit longer for it to set completely. It's still a superior product for me because I can use it pretty much on anything. I was going to show you, some people were asking me some questions about how it works and kind of time and everything. It's on this jar here. So here's where you're at. Basically, you mix it together, the 2 parts together, and it says to leave it for about 5 minutes. You want to wear some gloves. I don't, but that's just me. I just find they get in my way, but that's a personal preference. But I definitely make a point not to touch my eyes or, chew my fingernails or anything like that while I'm using this stuff. So here's the working timeline on it. You mix it. For the first 30 minutes or so, it's sticky and mostly adhesive. So that's the other benefit to this over some of the other clays, is that it comes with an adhesive in it, and it will stick to, I've only found a couple of things that this stuff doesn't stick really well to. Anything that's super smooth, anything that's got, if you're just trying to do a superficial, if it's super glossy, you want to sand it a bit or scuff it a bit just to give it something to adhere to. So for the first couple hours, it's pretty easy to work with. After 2 to 3 hours, it starts to become quite stiff, but you can still like carve good details into it without kind of mushing it and pushing it around. And after 24 hours, this stuff is like a stone. I built a foosball table where I took all the characters and I rebuilt them out of this stuff and I let it dry. And I've had that thing and I've taken it to conventions where people have played it. People have been crazy with it. And I've had no breaks on any of my pieces. I've dropped them. I've had pieces that break and the underpiece, the ceramic piece, breaks, but all of the clay stays exactly the same. It's very difficult to scratch. It's very difficult to... So it's just, to me, it's an amazing, amazing product. I don't work for them, but it is exclusively what I use. If you're looking for it, you can find it at www.avesstudio.com in case your local craft store or whatever doesn't sell it. There's a very specific place in Toronto where I have to go, but it takes me an hour to get there. That's the only place that sells it locally, so that I don't have to pay shipping charges, but that's So there's a few instructions for it. Here's some of the features. It won't shrink, it won't crack while it's drying. You can drill it, you can sand it once it's done, you can tap it, like if you want to put a screw into it. I do a lot of carpentry work, so tapping is when you can actually, there's a tapping bit, and you put it in, you drill a precise hole, and then you send another bit through, and it actually puts screw threads in it. So you can actually put screws and bolts and stuff into it like you would anything else. It is non-flammable. It's freeze-thaw stable, so if you wanted to make something for your garden, and it comes in lots and lots and lots of colors. So it is outdoor. You can use it outdoor. It's great for bonding. Like look, you can use it on ceramic. You can use it on metal. You can use it on wood, stone, glass, plastic, resin kits, fiberglass, polymers, foam, and more. So you can pretty much use this stuff with anything. Like it's pretty. Again, I don't work for them yet. Hopefully, maybe if I promote them enough, they'll take me on if they like what I do. Who knows? But they also on their website, they have some good tutorials and stuff like that. So that's why I use what I use. One of the other reasons that I use this stuff is, you'll see it as we start to sculpt and work on some of these pieces, is that, so for example, today I'm going to work a bit on the face. So we're going to do like cheekbones, we're going to do like the brow. Well, we'll try and do like cheekbones, lips, the brow, the chin, that sort of thing. But then tomorrow I'm going to want to get into some finer details like eyelids and little things. So whereas some clays that don't have adhesives in them, if you were to try and take like a little tiny piece and roll it up like this and try and get it to stick without using glue and then having to rebake it or anything like that, that would be extremely difficult. With this stuff, even though the other stuff is hardened 24 hours, you make up a little tiny little clay snake, and you put it in there and you kind of press it in a little bit, and it sticks just fine. It kind of blends into whatever previous sculpting that you've already done, and it never comes off. It's incredible. I don't know. Anyway, for me, I love it. It's the only stuff that I use. I am not narcissistic to say it's the only product out there. I'm not going to tell you, it's all up to you and what you like to use and what you're most comfortable with. There is definitely a learning period with it. If you have any questions, if you're interested in trying it and you have any questions, you can always send me a message and say, I tried this and it's not working. I've done this and I've done that. And so anyway, enough of me rambling. Let's get to some sculpting. So, pardon me. The number one thing you need is lots of sculpting tools, right? I have a whole bin, a variety of, it doesn't have to be those ones specifically. I buy packages of sculpting tools like this where they have a rubber tip on the end, and you get a variety of different shaping tools. These are like $6.99 at Hobby Lobby. You can buy them in different sizes and different strengths. I like tools like this one where it's got different size ball on either end, because then you can get some different shapes and add things that you need. But like I said, over 7 years, I've collected tons and tons and tons of tools. Never throw anything away, because you never know when you're going to need it. And of course, a knife is always, my knife blade's a little bit gummed up, but you always want to have a nice knife on hand. So I'm only going to work on one of these skulls, sculpting today, just because going back and forth between the two would be silly. So I'll just kind of show you how I shape a face. And if you're curious about how to sculpt a face, the best thing that you can do is kind of pull up like 3 or 4 pictures on a computer. Pardon me. At my desk, I have a computer, so I'll pull up 3 or 4 reference pictures of things that I need. Be careful what you Google. If you're Googling something scary like severed head, like we're doing today, make sure that you're like severed head cosplay, severed head makeup, because you don't accidentally want to pull up something terribly disturbing and gruesome. And, the police come to your door and ask to see your search history, and you have, like, what does a severed head look like on your computer, right? Okay, so our goal is to come up with something similar to this. This is an older one that I've done, right? We might do a little bit more decay on this one. We'll see. Okay, so I've mixed my clay, the two parts. So now it's a uniform color. I mixed it for a couple of minutes. So we'll take off a little piece, just a little tiny piece, about just under the size of my thumbnail. And you roll it into a little snake. So let's start with the top lip, okay? So you put it on like a little cheesy mustache. Now what you want to do is we're going to be working towards, again, this is how I work. I'm not trying to be narcissistic or anything, and I'm not saying what you want to do, what you have to do. This is how I work. If it works for you, it works for you. If it's not what works for you, then that's totally cool too. Don't feel like this is the be all and end all. I'm self-taught. I'm not like, if you know a better way or you think I'm doing something crazy, please tell me, because if there's an easier way for me to do stuff, I'm happy to hear it. So we're just going to flatten that out, but we're going to leave, like I said, the teeth, because what we're going to end up doing as we're sculpting is it's going to mash it down towards the teeth. So you don't want to have to then try and push it back away from the teeth. Leave it away from the teeth a little bit so that we can work stuff in. If you have too much clay, like see how I'm getting up here into the eye socket. Now we're definitely, if we want it to look gaunt and stuff, we're going to need that space to add some more clay. So we can just cut that right off, and it gets added to the stuff that we haven't used yet. And, like I read before, it's got like a 2-hour period of workability. So you can just add it, blends right into your old clump. Don't worry about mixing too much. I'll take a little bit of the nose off in case we need to add a nose later. Okay, so now the eyes are all exposed, right? Now if you look at your own face, or you look at a picture of a face online, there are very definitive lines that we have in our face. And one of them comes from like where your nostril ends, and it kind of runs down below your eye socket, orbital bone here. So we can go down. And a fun little project, to train yourself, if you have these skulls and stuff like that, and you just want to do some practice and make some little severed heads and stuff like that, is look up different expressions that people have. Look up smiling, look up angry, and try and emulate those. Try and look up celebrities, and try and make it as best you can to look like whoever it is that you're sculpting. For me, I build, if I go to a Comic-Con or something like that, and there's somebody really cool there that I want to meet, I will build a piece that's inspired off of films that they made or a character that they portrayed. So we're just kind of shaping the lip here, or a character that they portrayed, and I will sculpt something for them, and then I'll take it to them, and I'll get them to autograph it. I'll put it on a base or something like that. And I've met some pretty cool people doing that. But also what it does, if you have some creative talent, is when you bring up something unique to them that they've never seen before, something creative, something that you built, it shows that, you are enlightened, that you are, that you're inspired by the work that they do. And oftentimes, as opposed to, and I'm not trying to, downplay anybody. I'm so Canadian. I'm always apologizing to everybody, but what it also does is, instead of just asking for an 8x10 or signing a Funko Pop that they've signed 100,000 times, or asking them for an 8x10 that 800,000 other people have, here it is. You've created something unique. You were inspired by them. I built this for you because I really respect your work and I like your work, and so on and so forth. And that breaks down. It doesn't always work, but a lot of the times it breaks down their defenses a bit, and they want to know how you did it, and they're so enamored that you did that for them that they'll spend a few minutes talking to you, and they'll sign it for you, and it's really cool. It's kind of just breaks the ice. Okay, so we've kind of built the basic idea of a lip here, right? So it goes down. So then you're going to end up having an orbital bone here. So that will protrude a bit because we want it to look gaunt, right? Then you're going to have a cheek that comes down. And then there's a little piece of skin that kind of comes down into your chin and builds into your bottom lip and everything like that. So for me, all about the little details is adding tiny lines for the lips. Now this is a more... it's going to have been sitting on this post for a while, rotting and stuff like that. So instead of just the basic lines that you have in your lips, it's going to be more wrinkled and exposed and that sort of thing. So you can extend those lines up and just kind of come up here. You can add some, they don't have to all connect. You can add some depth where maybe some bugs are crawling out or something along those lines. You don't want them all to be consistently the same line, though, because that's just not natural, right? So have some lines that go longer than others, that stretch a little bit more, some that are a little bit shorter. Sorry about my heavy breathing. I'm a bit congested today. I'm working at work. I'm working with some fiberglass and stuff, so I'm a little... That's why my voice is all crackly. Okay, and just like the teeth, you want to push it up, right? You don't want it to be too consistent. And these cracks, if you remember our lesson from yesterday and stuff, these cracks will get filled with red paint and stuff like that. So it'll look pretty cool. Now, you can use any kind of tool. I'm going to use this little curved one here. But you can really push up and make more exaggerated scars, wounds, right? It's been sitting in the sun baking for quite some time. And go back over with the knife and just kind of gum those up a little bit. We'll make it look a little more ragged. Right. Okay, so we've got the startings of a top lip there. We'll warm up our clay a little bit by just blending it a bit more again. Man, oh man, these videos, 20 minutes already. Alright. I'll try and keep it under 30 minutes. So if we get close to the 30-minute mark, we'll stop for the day. Again, I do have to go to work. I don't want to go to work. I just want to stay here and make clay all day. I just want to sculpt things. That's my dream. If you guys want to send me $1 million so that I can just stay home and work, I will be happy to accept that $1 million. Doesn't even have to be $1 million. It can be $40,000 a year for the next however long. Okay, so a little bit of clay. What I think I'll do next is underneath the eye. I'll start working on an orbital bone. I tend to add the nose last because the nose kind of sits on the top of the face. So what I did here, I don't know if you can see it, kind of looks like a little bit of a maggoty kind of shape. It's like a comma. I guess that's a nicer way of putting it. Where it tapers at one end and it's kind of fat and blobby at the other end. Like me. And what I'm going to do is the skinny part goes up close to the nose, and then your fat blobby tapered part goes over here where the eye part, where the orbital bone sticks out, and this will give us, so now we can start kind of blending this up. Now remember, the eye is going to have to meet somewhere around where the pupil is, right? So you kind of want to get your long and skinny part to kind of match up there, and then you can just like follow that eye around. And the same thing on the other side, you're gonna have to have your eyelids meet up somewhere. So you need to make sure your clay goes up to about the halfway point of the eye. Okay, so now you're starting to see that we're gonna have that orbital bone. Again, I love this stuff because it blends so nicely. So I have an existing part here that's already there. So we can just kind of roll that right in there now. And it just goes right in. I might use it. If you got a little bit too much clay, remember I said you can always like cut it off if you feel like you've got excess, or you can just kind of blend it in further back on that skull. Right, so we can go a little further. So this is the other reason that I like to add stuff onto skulls, is because you can really, the skulls are cool and all, but you can really emphasize features and make them look much more gaunt and more, but it gives you a basic start off shape. Now with the Apoxiesculpt as well, to really help with the blending and make your tools not stick, it does have the adhesive in it, so it can be a little bit frustrating when you're trying to do stuff and it's sticking to your finger, especially if you've been working with it for a while and you got a little bit stuck to your finger, and then you're trying to do like a really small piece. It can stick to your fingers and it gets a little bit frustrating sometimes. This is where learning curves are. This is where we learn as we go. So what you can do is you can water, just a little bit of water, dip your tool like you would dip your paintbrush, and it won't, helps with the adhesion. It won't really stick that much anymore. Hope you guys can kind of see what's going on here. So this is one of those lines that I was saying that your face naturally makes. It's from your orbital bone down, follows your cheekbone down here. So we're going to follow that. So I know we have teeth, and I know we built teeth and everything over here, but this is ultimately where your cheek goes, right? So we're going to end up following this down. A lot of this will probably get covered unless we want it to be exposed. We leave it there in case we want to make a hole in the cheek or something, then we don't have to try and fill that in later with teeth. Like I said, I do a lot of stuff that ends up getting covered up that people don't even know exists in my sculptures, but it's better to have it there and then cover it up than not have it there and then realize that you need it, right? So, plus to me, having that in there gives a little more life to the piece. Okay, so it's kind of a rough start, but there's one of our cheek or orbital bones. Now, it's up to you how smooth you want to make it, right? Like this is supposed to be a head on a post, so it's going to have a bit of texture. Now, speaking about textures, I'll take this moment now before we reach our 30-minute mark to talk a little bit about textures. When you're thrift shopping, right? It's fun to look for figurines. It's fun to look at things and say, hey, this is cool, or I like this, and this is really neat. I could do something with this. I could repaint this. I could rebuild this. But there's something else that you should be doing. Like, I look at everything when I go to a thrift shop. When I'm buying stuff, I will go out and I will check the whole entire store. And the reason I do that is because you never know what you're gonna find. And my early pieces were pretty primitive, because I didn't quite know all my skills, and I did a bit of online research, and it started talking about some other stuff, and I started getting excited and thinking about other things. Sorry, I'm trying to dig something out here. So, one of the things that I found was cool textures. So, somebody who knows what I do was like, hey, I'm getting rid of all these purses. Do you want them? I'm like, what are you trying to say? I'm just kidding. I was like, yeah, I do, because here's why. I took those purses and I cut them apart. See all the texture? These are all leather purses. You can get a leather purse at Value Village or wherever you shop, Goodwill, whatever, and they all have leather, and leather is skin. So skin has a texture to it, and that's where stuff like this comes into handy. That's a very pronounced kind of texture, so I would use that probably on something bigger. But basically, you can go in there and buy 5 different purses that all have different styles on them, and this can easily just be slightly pressed in, and it's subtle, but it will give you, I don't know if you can see it or not, a little bit of realistic, instead of trying to carve all those wrinkles and stuff, this will give you realistic kind of looking flesh tone. Another trick I learned early on, and I'll show you, if you want really pronounced, like, dead skin, this is a weird one, always be looking for textures. Old orange peels. Okay? Do yourself a favor, go out, get an orange, have some vitamin C, enjoy it. I know a lot of you are in Florida, but take the orange peels and just dry them out, dehydrate them, leave them sitting out, and they'll go hard. Now watch. So now, if I want deeper sets of texture, I just press it right in. And it gives you more texture. You can use the edge, which is more jagged, to make scars, right? So there's a couple of added scars that we add in, and because it's a little more, not as clean like a knife would be, you get kind of a little bit more of a different texture to the scar, a little more different. If you want your eyes to be sunken in, make sure you leave like a lot down here where the orbital bone is, right? So there you kind of see some scar tissue. Now, because that's pronounced, I'm going to do a bit more. I really like the orange peel. I'm going to do a bit more on the upper lip. Okay. Starting to see more texture. Now, we already did this. We already did the orbital bone on this side. So I'm not going to do the other side because my video is already getting long. But essentially, you're just going to do the same thing to the other side. So let's work on the chin, the bottom lip. And then we'll call it a day for today because I do have to go to work. Work. So, those of you who don't know, while I kind of warm up the clay a little bit, I work for a company that makes like theater sets and everything like that. So I have access to a lot of materials and tools, but I only started working there a short time ago. This is not something that it was like, oh, well, I do this, so I might as well start making crafts. It was like I made crafts and I made art and I did sculptures long before I got this job. And actually, to be completely honest, it is a pretty cool job. I build like musical sets. I've done pieces for television shows and commercials and stuff like that. But I'm part of a bigger group, and I don't really get to do a lot of the detail stuff. I don't get to build props and things, unfortunately, because that's not the union that I'm in. I get to build carpentry stuff. But I did get this job because of my art skills, because of the fact that I could wrap my head around building something that's creative and imaginative and seeing the bigger picture. So my bosses, when they were looking for somebody, were quite intrigued by that. So, for all those people who are out there and like, oh, I just craft for a hobby, or I just do it for whatever's, and you're looking for something because you hate your job, don't be afraid to look into like the industry to see what's out there for like crafters and stuff like that. See what's being offered in your area for artists. Look up in Canada and the United States. I think it's I don't know if it's worldwide, but it's the IATSE, the international. Anyway, it's the international union. It's the one that you see at the end of all movie credits and everything like that. The IATSE. If you look up your IATSE in your area, then there might be potential if you have some carpentry skills or electrical skills or welding skills or crafting skills, to get into building stuff for plays and movies and that sort of thing. And it's quite an eye-opening. And you go to work, and every day you're inspired and you're surrounded by other people who make things and create things and build things, and you can just pick their brain all day. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so I'm using a much thicker piece of clay here, a much fatter snake, partially because it's all the clay that I have left for today, but also because this piece tends to require more. You can always cut it off if you need to. You can always spread it out more if you need to. So we're going to go up we're just basically going to follow the jawline up right into here. I need a bit of water on my thumb because I'm sticking to the clay. Right? We're going to go right up into the cheekbones like we did. There's our chin. Same thing on this side. Right? Follow the chin shape down. You can curl it around. Now what's also going to happen too is as this hardens, because you're connecting it to other pieces and so on and so forth, as it hardens, it's basically going to encapsulate this skull. And in doing that, as it hardens, it almost doesn't need the adhesive anymore because it's now just one solid piece around the skull.